So right off the bat, I loved the interviews that you sent me, the podcast recording, and I think that it's incredible that you are such a great advocate for other people, and especially plus size individuals, and bringing so much awareness to all of the discrimination that goes in that many people probably aren't especially aware of. And right off the bat, I was wondering if you could speak about maybe some of the discrimination that plus size individuals experience, and why you kind of felt called to be an advocate for.
Well, I think, yes, there's a lot of discrimination. I think a lot of people are not necessarily aware of that. I mean, and when I talk about discrimination, of course, there's, limitations as far as being able to shop for clothes, basic things like that. But in reality, when you look at statistics, and it's been a long time since I've actually looked at the numbers, but I know that, plus size people are, more likely discriminated in the workplace. They're less likely to be hired for certain jobs. There is a lot of actual real discrimination that they face in terms of just equal rights to be treated with respect. My recent cause, actually, I think I might be taking up is discrimination in the medical field. So that's something I have experienced firsthand. And I actually shared some things with my followers recently. And I was shocked at the number of people that were sending me DMs saying, oh my gosh, I've had either the same experience or something very similar, or telling me kind of these horrible stories about basically they went to the doctor, they complained about symptoms, they were told lose weight and that'll take care of it. No tests, no nothing. And then later they find out they have a tumor or very significant things that are completely overlooked because of their size. And I think that, to me, that's just horrifying. And when you look at, I did look at some of those numbers as far as people being just unwilling to go to the doctor because they have been basically fat shamed at their doctor's office. And who wants to go and deal with that? So they're not even getting basic screenings for health problems. And that's just terrible, So, so it impacts us in very real ways. I mean, obviously, I have a fashion blog, so that's not as serious. But I also think that, being able to dress well, feeling like you are dressing well, I think makes a huge difference in how you feel about yourself and then how you present yourself to the world. A lot of times I think people experience negative interactions when they don't feel confident in their own skin. And I think being able to style your clothing and wear stylish clothing, period, is really helpful to give you a boost of confidence. Then you step out into the world feeling comfortable with yourself. And then when you interact with other people, they sense that as well. And it's all kind of this flow kind of thing that happens that ends up, strangely enough, kind of almost changing your life just based on what you decided to wear. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but there is truth in that, I think, because, when you can't find anything that fits you correctly, you can't find anything that's stylish in your size, and then you're walking around, you're not feeling good about yourself, So I think it's really important to, style your clothing, take the time to style your clothing, try to find things that really work for you. And sadly, as plus size individuals, it's always going to be more challenging. I mean, that's at least been my experience my whole life so far. I've really it's getting easier, I will say, but for a very long time, it was really about trying to figure out with what was available in the market, how to make it look more stylish than it was, because there are just so many just frumpy, terrible, crappy garments, being sold to plus size women for so many years. It's challenging. So I think it's important. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's great that you're creating a space in this world for plus size individuals, and especially with clothes, and helping them feel empowered and beautiful, and really taking the time to be an advocate for other people who probably don't have the courage or the ability to really be an advocate for themselves, and to really show that, yes, everybody is equal. We deserve to have healthcare. We deserve to, go to the doctor and know that they're going to listen to us and actually help us, and not just throw a list of things without running any tests. And I think that's incredible. It's extremely brave of you.
Yeah, I don't know if it's brave, but it's something something I've just felt compelled to do, and it's really why I started doing what I started doing. I started making collages, or sets is what they used to be called, on Polyvore. And one of the main reasons was just that I wasn't seeing any plus size fashion there. I wasn't seeing any plus size fashion, many places at the time. There were blogs, thankfully, but there wasn't a lot of representation, I don't think, on social media at the time. And this was probably like a good, 10 plus years ago. So I think, I came to and I just wanted to show people that, like, it is possible. It's going to be a little more challenging than it should be. It's kind of, it's a little messed up that we have to like go through extra effort to dress ourselves, or to be kind of fashion forward, but it is possible. And that's sort of why I, started doing what I was doing, as I just wanted to kind of show that to people. And that was really my goal. So.
Absolutely. Well, and so many people out there, they want to look good, but they don't know where to shop or how to put outfits together. And it's like you're taking all of that work out for them. They can go to your website and they can find, what companies and what color schemes and different outfit ideas, and then they can really look and feel their best. And I mean, that is a really, really incredible.
Oh, thanks. I mean, yeah, I try to take the effort as much out of it as possible, because it is a shame that it has to be like you've got to like do deep research to like find out like where you can shop for basic things. And like, it's not like, who has time for that? If you're working a full-time job and you've got kids or whatever, like, who has time to like research like the best possible place to find whatever it is you need. So I try to be a resource in that regard, and I also try to teach certain things as I go, as far as styling things, and things just like basic, like color theory is one of my big things. I love color theory. So I'm always talking about that, trying to teach people not just, hey, this is going to look good with this, but this is why it's going to look good. And like, so something they can take away and hopefully use in other ways in the future. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best thing, to really teach them how to do it for themselves too, and feel better about what they're wearing and more confident in it too.
Yes, definitely.
So what crossroads led to you kind of taking matters into your own hands and to begin posting about your inspiration and the outfits that you're putting together?
Well, like I said, I didn't see a lot. I discovered Polyvore so randomly. I don't even remember honestly how. I was trying to make some type of collage or something that was like nothing to do with anything I do now. And I found Polyvore somehow, and and I thought it was really cool, because it really is. I mean, it was, I should say, it no longer exists. But there were these people, making these gorgeous collages, and some of them were, very fashion focused, and they were just fascinating to me, and like just pieces of artwork almost. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so of course I started looking through, and I started searching for, plus size, and there was just really like nothing there. And I was like, that's kind of weird. And then at the time was, I guess, when Pinterest really first started. So at the time it was like invitation only. I was like, it's exclusive. So I was like, oh, I want to check this out. And when I got into Pinterest, oh my gosh, that was like amazing. I had never seen anything quite like it before. I'm a very visual person. So for me, it was just so my platform. Do you know what I mean? It was just all about like the images, and I don't know, so inspired by it. And then of course, again, I started looking for plus size fashion. And at that time, I mean, there was just nothing. And I was like, this is so sad, because I've found this platform, and it has, it's this great resource with all of these inspiring images and like these amazing, fashion things, and where's my people and my size, that these things aren't available to me. I'm looking at beautiful outfits, and I'm thinking, well, none of this is going to actually be available to me. So that's, I was like, this is the problem. So at the time I was following a bunch of different blogs, and I just really started pinning everything I was coming across in my own search, just for constant searching for inspiration, to Pinterest. And between that and then pinning the things that I was creating on Polyvore, I started to like have this audience, and it was just like completely unexpected. I was really just kind of, I mean, of course, I hoped that other people would see what I was pinning, but it wasn't like my, I didn't really expect it to happen,
That's awesome.
So
You have that natural talent, though. People really gravitate towards that.
well, it's funny because, my friends had been saying that, and I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about, and then I started getting, tens of thousands of followers, and they were like, that's really something. And I was like, yeah, I guess it is, and then they're like, you should monetize that. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I don't, and I just didn't, because I don't know, that it honestly wasn't why I was there in the first place. So it was just kind of, but yes, later, of course, I did find out that you can actually make money with these things. And I was like, oh, wow, like that's amazing. So that's sort of, I guess, how things really began, was just seeing a need and trying to fill it,
Yeah. That's awesome. And really giving that representation too, because and that's such a huge thing about like for so long, like all of advertising and social media, everybody looked so similar, and how are you supposed to know how something looks on you, or even like colors and everything, unless you have that representation in front of you?
True. Yes, definitely.
So do you have a background in business or in fashion or anything like that?
I really don't. I mean, I do, but not really, like not formally. Like my education, I have a degree in psychology, obviously has absolutely nothing to do with either of those things whatsoever. But I am lucky. I did grow up in, my grandparents had a business, and my parents had a business. So I'm actually, I think, like a fourth generation business owner or something like that. So we're all kind of entrepreneurs. I think there's just kind of no escaping it almost, and I grew up in those businesses, working in them and learning just kind of from being there. So I kind of absorbed some things, I think, just kind of naturally, and also, I will say that, my mother was or is really into fashion. That's always been her thing. She's been very passionate about it. So I grew up in a house where there's always like Vogue and, just fashion magazines and things like that. So, I was always flipping through those. And, my mom is, my parents owned like a fabric store, and there was, a lot of fashion going on there. They were making clothing, and, I don't know, just being exposed to all of that, I think, gave me the interest that I have, gave me the passion that I have, I guess. And then being that I have been larger my whole life, even, as a kid or a teenager, trying to find things to wear that were, stylish or on trend, or even just expressing myself, just, it was so challenging, especially, back then. It's a little easier, I think, now, but I think that drove me to figure things out, if that makes, it's like, I just didn't find it acceptable, I guess, to just kind of wear the things that, and it really wasn't even much marketed to me, if I'm being honest. There really, even just in my age group, there just wasn't plus size clothing available. So I would basically look at clothing that was really designed for frumpy older women, and then try to make it into something interesting. And so I think, in a sad sort of way, that, led me to learn how to, put things together and try to see things differently,
Well,
so yeah.
How amazing does it feel that, you are part of that shift? You're one of those people that helped to bring that representation and to help change the tables, especially for the kids now.
Yeah, it's so much better. It's so much better now. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's hard for me to think about myself having any role in that, but it is,
you get millions of views and, hundreds of thousands of followers. Like, you are a known name when it comes to fashion.
I know. I think it's hard for me sometimes, like, I don't know how to, it's just a weird phenomenon. Like, I was actually talking to someone about this recently who works in social media, and he was like, you do realize that like more people like subscribe and follow your blog than like live in the county that I live in, which, you know, and you know, and
Yeah.
I know where he lives, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. You know, he's like, that's like multiple stadiums, right? Like of people
Yeah.
waiting to like and I'm like, it's just hard to like, you know, I don't know. It's just hard to wrap my head around it a little bit, but it's, I mean, it's amazing, you know,
Yeah,
obviously it's
it
very
is.
flattering, and, you know, that anyone would want to hear what I have to say is amazing to me. So, but, but
Well,
yeah, so
sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, but yeah, for me, I look at some of the, you know, like the OG fashion bloggers, you know, who really inspired me, and I look to them and think like, wow, they did like such amazing things. They were so groundbreaking, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so it's hard for me to like put myself anywhere near their, you know, that level. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you definitely
But
can do it. At
but
that
but
level.
yes, I mean, you know, it is amazing that I can help people and you know, be a part of that. That's amazing. Yes, definitely. So
And it's in your blood too, like even with your parents' business, with the fashion industry, fabrics, and all the entrepreneurial energy in your family. It's kind of like you were destined to do this.
I
So
know, and you know, it's so funny because I just never really put it together like that, because people would ask me things like this and I'd go like, I don't know, I have a degree in psychology, and like I used to do like clinical research for a living. Like I don't know like how I ended up here. But then when I really started to think about it, I was like, well, you know, it kind of does make sense. It's just not what I expected, you know? Not
yeah,
at all what I expected.
right, right. Which
So,
is like so life. I mean, things never
right,
work
right,
out the way you
true.
expected, but yeah, so much better a
Yes.
lot of times. Um,
Yes.
So, what was the moment where you knew that it was time to pivot from having this as your side hustle to becoming a full-time career?
So in some ways, it's interesting. I was going to say in some ways I was really lucky, but that's a weird way of looking at it, but it is true. So I was working full time while I was doing this kind of on the side. I was just creating, you know, my little sets on the weekends and stuff, you know, when I had free time. I was
Yeah.
working, you know, full time job, was very busy, sometimes very stressful, didn't have a lot of time. But I ended up having an injury, and I had to leave my job, which was devastating to me at the time. I mean, I just didn't know what I was going to do, what I was going to do with myself. You know, how am I going to
Yeah.
make a living? You know, like what am I? It was horrible. It was devastating. But I consider myself lucky that that happened in a sense, because it pushed me to throw all my energy into this blog. And I had been talking about starting a blog for a long time, because I had this at the time. I already had, you know, I don't even remember, probably like in the 70,000 follower range, maybe more. I don't really even know, but it was a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, you know, they had asked me, do you have a blog? Where's your blog? You know, like where, and I'm like, I don't have one of those. So I had been talking about doing this for a while. In fact, I had even posted like years before, if I get like 20,000 followers, I'll start a blog.
Yeah.
Well, I never actually did. So that's the funny part. But
Yeah.
um, so when I bought a domain actually, but I never, like, it was funny. It was like, it's just sitting there, like not doing anything with it. So when this happened, this kind of tragedy almost, and I
Mm.
felt so lost, I was like, I'm just going to throw all my time into this for right now. Like, just like almost literally for my sanity. Cause I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. So this is what I'm going to do. And
Yeah.
I started doing that. And, you know, at the time I had already started, I guess, monetizing a bit on social media and things. So I was a little bit more familiar with like affiliate marketing and things like that. So I basically, yeah, I started it off and I started monetizing my blog, and like I was shocked. I was shocked because I was getting all these clicks. You know, I was getting so much traffic just like right off the bat.
Hmm.
And in turn, of course, I was making money, and I was like, wow, okay, you know, maybe this is a thing that I can do. And you know, so I look back at that moment as being like, you know, it was horrible in so many ways. But I was so lucky because I don't think I would have necessarily been pushed into that position. You know what I mean? Or maybe
Yeah.
it would have taken longer. I don't know. But um, it was just almost like the universe like pushing me into something, you know? So yeah, so it's a weird turn of events, but it was a good thing. So
Yeah, very much all in that realm of meant to be still. It's like everything kind of in your life was leading up to this moment.
yeah, it's weird. I still look at that and I'm like, it's so weird, It just, yeah. So
Awesome. So, I mean, what is some advice that you give to somebody who's just starting out, whether it's with fashion design or with a blog or starting some sort of social media account?
my thing is to always, I just think it's so important to be passionate about it. People ask me sometimes, like, what do I do with, starting a blog, or what should I blog about? Or, and I always say, like, anything that you will never, ever, 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 ever be sick of. Like, you need to be able to talk about it, to research it, to learn about it, to write, it has to be this thing that you're just so passionate about that, like, it just never gets old.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important, number one. You
Yeah.
have to have that drive and that passion, because without it, yeah, you get burnt out. I mean, even I get burnt out sometimes. It happens. But then I'll, new fall collections will come out, and I'll be like, oh, I'm excited. So it's constantly like about being inspired. So I think that's really important.
Mhm.
But I think the other thing is I truly, I just don't think that people will be very successful if they're in this for the money.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, there are a lot of other much easier, much better ways to make money. Like,
Yeah.
this is not one of them. This is hard. There's going to be a struggle. It's going to be hard. It's not, it's not overnight. It took me years to build up the following that I have.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I think, yeah, I had no expectations. And so I think, first of all, if I had any expectation for making money, early on, it would have been a very different thing. I probably would have been making very different content. I just don't think things would have happened the way they happened. And the other thing is, I've over the years, I have listened to it and seen a lot of interviews with other influencers and bloggers, and they kind of all say the same thing. I've noticed,
Yeah.
like, I didn't get in this, to be famous or like make money, or these are not the things that I was here because I was passionate about sharing something,
Yeah.
and they all seem to have very similar traits in that regard. So I think, yeah, I think it's important that you're really passionate, and that's what you're in it for. And I think if you do that, then the money doesn't matter. And then I think, ironically, that's when eventually the money does come to you, I think. Because I think you have to have that kind of just drive to do things. I mean, there are times when I put out content and it just, doesn't do well. Sometimes I know it's not going to do well, to be honest, but I do it anyway because I love it. And I'm like, this is me, and this is my, I know it's, you know, going to kill the algorithm, and they're going to, I know it's not a good thing, but I don't care, just
Yeah.
because I'm so, I feel a certain way about things and I want to share things. So
Yeah.
I think that's, my number one kind of advice or tips, because yeah, I think if you're looking to quickly try to, make some money, and yeah, it's just not gonna, I just don't think long term that
Yeah.
that's gonna really work,
Yeah, absolutely. I love that because it's so true. It takes so much, especially building your own business, any sort of influencer like blogging, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, like everything. It's so much. And that kind of
Yes.
segues into the next question of like what outside factors have helped you really take your business to the next level other than like your own drive and I guess more like self-care or like friendships. Like what do you recommend? Like what has really helped support you emotionally and physically to do this, take it to the next level?
Yeah. So I think one of the things I didn't do, in the beginning, is I really didn't join the plus size blogger community. I just, I don't know. I guess I don't want to say like I felt like an outsider, because that's not really true. I just didn't really know them. And I just felt like, I was doing something over here in Polyvore, and they're probably like, who the heck is that? What is she talking about?
Yeah.
So I really didn't have any kind of, it was a very isolating experience, like I went from having coworkers and like working in like busy environments. And now I'm like in my house by myself, just like on my laptop, you know? So it's like very isolating. And so what I did find though is that when I started making an effort to reach out, not just to reach out to people, but also joining groups, like, you know, there's different blogging groups and things I've joined, and I've met people. And now I actually have a couple of communities that I belong to that are just really, really helpful. And that has been, so helpful in so many ways, not just as far as, you know, like, let's give each other tips on, you know, how to increase our traffic or whatever, but an actual like, hey, yeah, this is really lonely. This is hard at times. Or like, are you having trouble with this? And, you know, it's been really helpful to have that support. I think that's important. And I wish I had maybe sought that out a little bit earlier. So that's something I would actually also recommend to people is like, find a group, find a community, someone, you know, people that you can belong with and relate to. I think that's really important. I think also, I have to give credit to my mom. My mom is very supportive, and she, you know, I'm always like sending her stuff. I'm like, what do you think of this? And, you know, she's always giving me like little feedback. And sometimes that's nice. You know, I don't really have coworkers. You know, I have some people that help me in things, but I don't have like true, like, I don't have an office with like coworkers across the way that I can be like, hey, like, check this out. What do you think? There's no, you know, it's just me. And honestly, after like hours of looking at stuff, I'm like, I have no idea. I don't even know anymore. You know, like it's just like, I'm like in like my head, it's like not a good thing. So it's helpful to have like my mom there. I'm like always sending her like pictures of things. Like, what do you think? So that's helpful too, you know. And she has a really good eye, I think, also in terms of like fashion and stuff. So, you know.
So that's great. So having those like supportive friendships and community, because it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of vulnerability putting yourself out there to millions of people and subjecting yourself to criticism. I mean, everybody out there on the internet is subject to criticism, but
yes, and it gets harder. I didn't realize that. It gets harder as you get more popular, get more, you know, audience, people looking at you, things like that. It's suddenly it goes from I'm sharing this cute thing with, you know, a few people, and then, you know, to like thousands of people, and then they're sending me messages and you know, I'm disappointed, or I'm upset, or I don't like this, or, you know, and it's like, oh wow, okay. Like, wow, okay. And also, it is, you know, I don't share that much of I'm trying to. I don't share as much of my personal life as I think a lot of other, you know, influencers do. You know, part of that is just I'm a private person. The other piece of it is just that, you know, it's amazing what people will say to you. It's, you know, that's hard for me, and I want to protect myself. You know, so I try not to share too much. I mean, I do share, but it's a fine line for me. It's a balance. It's a constant balance. And I do try to share some things and open up a bit, you know, but even with that, sometimes, you know, that can be hard. So it gets harder ironically, as you get more popular. Yes, even with my work, you know, it's harder because, and the algorithms are brutal. I'll be honest with you. Like sometimes, you know, like I'll be putting things out there, and even though my core audience is still with me and they're still, you know, but I'll be on Instagram, for example, and something will just tank, and I'll be like, wow, okay, like people don't like this. It's not good. And honestly, I don't even know if that's true, because with the algorithms and things, you don't really even know. But, you know, then I look at, you know, like people are still visiting the site. They're still clicking, you know, they're not sending me email. So, okay, like this is good. So it's, you know, it's still a lot of, it's still hard, you know, in a way.
I love that. Really ties back to what you said earlier. It's like, if you're going to do this, you have to do it for yourself and for nothing else other than like you're passionate about this and that's why you're producing it. Because if we're posting stuff only for likes or engagement or anything like that, like anything is going to really tip you over, or it's just already so much pressure, and that adds so much more pressure to it.
Yes, and I think and not everyone is going to get caught up in that. Even if you're like, I don't care, like if I get likes, you know, Like, you can say that, but that,
Of
but
course, like, yeah.
when you're getting like a fraction of what you would normally get, you're like, what am I doing? Like, is there something,
Yeah. Like
it can't
Googling
help it, It's not like I want people to, oh, they like me. It's not like that. It's just like, like my work is, helping or doing something, like otherwise, yeah, at times it's like, oh, maybe I, have lost my, I don't know, like it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, it's great that you're doing what you're doing too. It's just because it's not only like determination and drive and talent, but it's also resilience too. And I mean, I feel like it takes a really strong person to be able to put yourself out there and to make a living off of it. And yeah, so I keep saying that, but I think it's great.
You have to really learn to filter out a lot because you're going to get a ton of feedback, whether you want it or you ask for it or not, it's coming to you. And so I think it's important to know what you should listen to because I definitely want to listen to my audience. They're the whole reason I'm here. So if they have something to say, I definitely need to listen. But at the same time, there are some people that are just going to say things just to say them, just to get a reaction out of you, or because they're ticked off because something else happened that has nothing to do with you, and they happened to get on Facebook and they're like, whatever. It's like, so some of those things you just have to like be like, that has nothing to do with me. That's not my problem or my business. And like, whatever. Yeah, but I say that, but then in those moments, you're like, what? Like, what?
Yeah.
It's hard to not get a little bit upset sometimes, and
Absolutely.
so yeah, so it's a matter of like, I think, filtering out the criticisms that are coming to you, like what is actually worth listening to, and what is like really not anything worth listening to, and then not letting that stuff, affect you, or and some days, it's easier than others. Some days it hits you and you're like,
right. They say that one trigger.
yes, and it's so funny because I'll have like, like hundreds of amazing, sweet, awesome comments, and then I'll have like this one horrible thing, and then that's the thing I'm focused on, so I'm trying to not let that happen. Yeah.
So well, good for you. That's great. I mean, that's why I could not be an influencer because of all of the hate and so many people who just want to bring you down because they're down.
Yeah. There's a lot of that on the internet, it seems.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So in one of your interviews, you talked about how Tailwind has helped you to save time, and I kind of want to dig more into that of with using Tailwind to schedule your posts and your pens, what has it allowed you to do in your business that otherwise you might not have had the time to do?
Well, I said in one of my interviews, I think, like, Tailwind like changed my life. But I mean that. I know that's like so like profound, but like I truly mean that because back when I had a full-time job and I was doing this as just, like my passion, and then it became a bit of a side hustle. I was actually starting to monetize and make some income, but I didn't have time to do anything. I mean, I was working like during like Monday through Friday, like there was just no time, and so I obviously was putting in time on the weekends, but that doesn't really work in the long run. You can't disappear 5 days a week and then expect things to go somewhere. So getting Tailwind for me was huge because it allowed me to, I would go to work and like I'd be pinning while I'm at work, and bringing in an income while I'm doing another job. And so to me, that was like life changing. It really was, because not only did it allow me to, continue to work while also building this business, but it also proved to me in a sense that like this is something that could be monetized. This is something that I could make money doing. And I don't think that would have been possible, really, at least not to the extent of success that I've had without Tailwind. So I really, in many ways, I'm like super grateful. I'm so happy.
We're so grateful.
But it also it made my life a lot easier too, because now, of course, Pinterest has changed dramatically, even especially recently. But for a long time, it was all about pinning, your content plus other people's content. It was all about having a variety of sources and a variety of things. And so And also to kind of have it all mixed up, so to speak. Like you wouldn't want to have the same exact looking things over and over again in your feed. So like you don't want to switch it all up. So like for me, it was just like crucial because the limited time that I would have to go find things to pin, because that was really part of what I was doing, you know, way back when, that was very important. It allowed me to do it in such a way where it was shuffled up, because it allowed me to, what am I trying to say? Be like methodical about finding sources and then sharing them in a way that was more pleasing to the audience. And of course, then in turn, the algorithm and all of that. So in many ways, I think, yeah, it allowed me to do that. I wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. I wouldn't have had the time. I wouldn't have, you know, or it would have, my account would have just sucked because it would have been like the same things like all in a row, you know, like,
Yeah.
So it was like really important at the time, you know, it's still really important, but definitely for growing back then, like that was just like, yeah, crucial. So
yeah, that is great how it just sets that up and shuffles it and everything so that you can get as much engagement as you need, or as much engagement as you can.
yes, and also that, you know, Tailwind basically was like, this is when you should do it. And I'm like, yes, okay, let's do that. Because I really didn't know. I kind of knew who my audience was, generally speaking, but I'm like, I don't really know, like when they're, you know, online, when they're not, like, I don't really, and at the time there weren't a lot of Pinterest analytics to look through. I mean, now like they offer a lot, but back then they didn't.
Yeah.
So it was really running blind, and it was like, I'm hoping for the best that that people are home right now and they're, you know, or they're on their phone or whatever. And you know, they're going to engage with this content. So it was great that Tailwind was already like, look, this is when you need to do it. You just tell it, you know, you just give us the stuff and we'll do it. And I'm like, okay. So much easier.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that. So what are some of your favorite Tailwind features or parts of the app? Or
So I love the ability, first of all, I think that the analytics are great. I think that that's been really quite helpful. But I love being able to go back through, and I don't know why I'm like blanking right now on the, hold on a second, I'm actually going to look on my, like, what is it called? The, where it's like you publish, it's the pin inspector. Oh my gosh. Pin inspector. Okay. So the pin inspector is fantastic. So not only is it telling you like what's doing well, what's performing well, but then it allows you like right there to repin it and to repin it wherever you want it to go. And like, that's just so like, just so helpful. Like even today, like you know, the analytics on Pinterest, just not that helpful. And they just, you know, even if you do find something that, you know, is performing well and you're like, I want to repin it, even that's not simple. So it's amazing that Tailwind just like, it's just like click, click, done. And, you know, it's one of my favorite things, honestly. So yeah.
Awesome.
It's really helpful.
The pen inspector. Awesome.
Yes.
So, I mean, last but not least, what's next for you in your business?
Oh boy. I have like lots of ideas. It's more like if only I had more of me to go around. That's always the challenge, right? Yeah, so I think, yeah, I have a lot of plans as far as like from a business perspective. I want to really work on having a newsletter, really having like more, you know, I don't know, closer conversations, I guess, with my audience. I think email is a great way to do that. Email also is something that, you know, you own that list. I think that's so important. So that's one of the things from a business standpoint. But then, of course, with social media now, we have a real push to video, which obviously I'm creating static images, I'm creating collages. So my challenge now is to figure out how to make it a bit more interactive and, you know, engaging. And so video seems to be where it's at. So this is going to be, I have started working on some things, learning new skills constantly. So, because I don't know anything about video, if I'm being honest. I made one makeup tutorial. The editing was probably absolutely horrific. Like I posted it, you know, it's so funny. I posted it and I was like, do I really want to like post, like put this in the world? Like it's so bad. But that is one of my other pieces of advice, is that sometimes you just have to do it. It's going to be bad. If you look at the things that I posted in the beginning of, working on Polyvore, oh my gosh. I mean, I have them all, by the way. They allowed me to download everything from my account. So sometimes I will go back and look at, my work from like 10 plus years ago, and oh, wow, it's bad. I mean, it's real bad. Like, it's, so the point is, though, had I not pushed myself to just go ahead, put it out there, I wouldn't get to where I am. So you have to sometimes like let it go and just be like, yeah, okay, it sucks, not good,
Right.
And that's kind of where I think I'm headed with video right now. So it might be a little bit rocky for a bit, but we'll get there. Yeah.
Awesome.
So.
Well, you've given some really great tips. Thank you so much. And I love your story. There's so many people out there that, want to take their business to the next level, and just hearing stories of people that did it. And even if it wasn't smooth sailing the whole time, I mean, it's so great for people to learn more about and to hear about. So thank you.
Oh, sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's great. So
yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Have a great rest of your day.